British Rail's plans for electrification will get government backing only if they're profitable and there are improvements in productivity. The Transport Minister, Mr. Norman Fowler, told the Commons that the government wasn't prepared to give an unconditional commitment to British Rail for electrification of an extensive network. Each project, he said, would be looked at individually and would have to meet the government's terms. Mr. Fowler's tough talking was directed towards the rail unions. He said British Rail's management wanted to lose 38,000 jobs by 1985. 7,500 went in the last 12 months. But he's invited BR to prepare and submit a list of schemes which can be started within a 10-year period. These should potentially be profitable mainline routes where the benefits could justify the investment. Each project would be judged against return on investment and on evidence of improved productivity. Early candidates for electrification will probably be the East Coast and Midland main lines. Only 21% of the rail network is already electrified. That's one of the lowest percentages in Europe. It's mainly the West Coast line to Glasgow and commuter routes in the southeast. Leaders of the 4 ambulance workers' unions have called for a national 24-hour strike on Friday with emergency cover provided. But ambulance men in London say from now on they'll strike without warning and without answering emergency calls in defiance of their national leaders. And lightning strikes have been held in parts of Scotland today, including Glasgow and Dundee. Another letter bomb has been sent to an MP. Similar to others recently sent to MPs, it was addressed to Sir John Biggs-Davison, but intercepted by staff in the House of Commons post room. Sir John, who was knighted in the birthday honours, is chairman of the Conservative Party's Northern Ireland Committee. Mike Wooldridge reports.
The incendiary device was spotted by a postal worker shortly after 8 o'clock this morning and aroused suspicion because it was similar to those sent to the other MPs. It was handed over to the police to be diffused and examined. It's the second letter bomb Sir John has received. He was sent one in 1972 by an organisation with Irish connections. There's been no claim of responsibility yet on this occasion, but the police believe that it may again be the work of the so-called English Republican Association, which the police believe is in fact one individual working alone. This device sent last October to the Labour MP Frank Lawn is like the one sent to Sir John. They are, the police say, designed to cause distress rather than to kill. Sir John, a Catholic, is known as an outspoken opponent of the IRA, and he's assuming that the author of these devices sympathises with the IRA. Would he now feel inhibited in any way in talking about Ireland?
No, and Mrs. Thatcher, amongst others, have made it very, very plain that terrorism is in business because it thinks that it can intimidate us into doing things that we know we should not do. And we must stand completely firm, and that is the way to the defeat of terrorism.
The man accused of murdering John Lennon in New York last December has changed his plea to guilty. A court in Manhattan was told this afternoon that Mark Chapman had decided to reject the advice of his lawyer and plead guilty after hearing voices from God. Chapman now faces up to 25 years in jail when sentence is passed on August the 24th. Police in Atlanta, Georgia, have charged a man with the murder of one of the 28 young blacks killed in the city over the past 2 years. Wayne Williams, a 23-year-old freelance cameraman, was questioned by police earlier this month about the murders. But as Martin Bell reports, it wasn't until last night that police felt that they had enough evidence to charge him.
Williams, the first and only suspect in the case, was arrested at his home in northwest Atlanta. He'd been under police surveillance there for weeks since being found near the Chattahoochee River the night the body of the latest victim, Nathaniel Cater, was dumped there. Williams has now been charged with the murder.
At approximately 5 p.m. this date, Wayne Williams, who is a black male, aged 23 years of age, was taken into custody on an arrest warrant charging him with the criminal homicide of Mr. Nathaniel Cater.
The arrest of Williams by no means closes the case. There have been 28 murders of young blacks in Atlanta, and the suspect has been charged with only one of them. The mass searches, to some extent an expression of public frustration, are now over, but the danger is not, and police are warning the parents of young children not to relax their vigilance.
President Bani Sadr of Iran has been dismissed by Ayatollah Khomeini. The parliament in Tehran had found Bani Sadr guilty of political incompetence, and the Muslim fundamentalists have called for him to be hunted down and brought to trial. He's not been seen in public for 12 days, and some reports say that he's left the country. Pope John Paul has pleurisy, an infection of the lining of the chest cavity, but his condition is improving. The Vatican made the announcement after the Pope had undergone tests at the hospital where he was readmitted on Saturday because of a persistent fever. Wimbledon fortnight got underway this afternoon in perfect summer weather, but the occasion was marred in the very first match on number 1 court. John McEnroe, number 2 seed, was involved in several rows with officials and was later penalised by the umpire and the referee. A report by Michael Blakey.
At Wimbledon, electronic line monitors are operating on the major courts to help officials. Umpires have also been given stronger powers to control players behaving badly. They can be penalised by losing points, the loss of a game, or even disqualification. And it didn't take long for the new system to be in operation. McEnroe had complained about some dubious calls and finally lost his temper with the umpire after serving what he thought was an ace.
No, it was a bit of a spread, Mr. McEnroe. That was a good call.
Excuse me?
That was a bit of a spread.
Look, you can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious! That ball was on the line. Chalk flew up. It was clearly in. How can you possibly call that out?
Soon afterwards, McEnroe was arguing again.
15-30.
Saw that serve in up for? What, because that thing verified it, or what?
Service good, Mr. McEnroe.
You got the absolute pits of the world, you know that?
I'm going to award a point against you, Mr. McEnroe.
McEnroe demanded to see the referee, Fred Hoyle, and when he arrived, he was left under no illusion about the number 2 seed's opinion of the umpire.
You are the incompetent.
Because you were
like a
using
referee,
that-
you're not supposed to announce it. We're not going to have a point taken away because this guy's an incompetent fool. You know that?
Mr. Hoyle upheld the penalty point and imposed another one when McEnroe insulted him. At this point, he was within 2 warnings of being disqualified, but he won the match against Tom Gullickson in straight sets.
And now for the main points of the news again, with subtitles for the hard of hearing. British Rail won't be getting an unconditional commitment from the government for aid in electrification of an extensive network. But BR has been called on to submit a 10-year programme of schemes on potentially profitable routes. Each project will be judged against the return on investment and on evidence of improved productivity. Leaders of the 4 ambulance workers' unions have called for a national 24-hour strike on Friday. They've asked crews to provide emergency cover without pay, but in some parts of the country, it's likely that this instruction will be ignored. London ambulance men say that from now on, they'll strike without warning and without answering emergencies. A letter bomb addressed to the Conservative MP Sir John Biggs-Davison has been intercepted at the House of Commons. Postal staff became suspicious of the package, which was similar to others recently sent to MPs. In New York, Mark Chapman has pleaded guilty to the murder of John Lennon last December. Chapman said he believed God had spoken to him in prison, telling him to change his plea from not guilty. Wimbledon tennis fortnight has begun with some angry outbursts by John McEnroe in his first match. He was eventually penalised after rows with the umpire, but still managed to go on to win. Newsnight at 10:45 tonight will be examining the debate over whether to prevent convicted prisoners from standing for Parliament. And there's a report from the Natural History Museum on the continuing argument over evolution. That's all from us. Good night.